Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic podcast. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. It means the world to me. Thank you very, very, very much. And today we welcome along another writer through these doors, the supremely talented Sarah Page. And if anyone who is not familiar with Sarah's work, let's take a moment to introduce her right now. She is an award-winning playwright and screenwriter and a graduate of the Royal Court Theatre's Young Writers and Studio Writers groups, as well as the alumni of the prestigious For Screenwriting program. And the script she developed on this was picked up by Sunny March, an independent film and TV company led by a certain Mr. Benedict Cumberbatch. She was listed on the BBC New Talent Hotlist and chosen from thousands of entries for the BBC Drama Writers Programme. Her plays have been produced all over the world and published by Bloomsbury Press, Oberon Books, and Samuel French. Her first audio play, Mrs. Wickham, starring Jessie Buckley and Johnny Flynn, available on Audible right now, became a global success on Audible, winning the 2023 International Audio and Best Original Work, being chosen as one of the iPaper's 25 best pieces of audio of all time, and is currently being adapted into a feature film. And also don't forget to check out her second Audible project, Billionaire for Sale, starring Johnny Flynn, available right now as well, and we look forward to potential future adaptations of that as well, but more of that to come. But in the meantime, hello, Sarah.
Hello, that was a nice introduction. Thank you.
No, it's all you, mate. It's all you. Nice. How are you? Okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Enjoying our somewhat on and off summer at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a weird summer in the UK, isn't it? It's like sometimes we're blessed with the hot weather. Some days it's a bit more miserable like this, isn't it? But so we start at the beginning with every guest. So in your case, Sarah, where did it come from? The love of writing and being in this business. Where did it come from?
Do you know, I always wanted to be a writer, even when I was absolutely tiny. I wrote my first novel when I think I was about 6 years old, about a robot cat. And I made my first film that was a version of Batman where my dog was the Joker when I was about 10. So I've always been just telling stories, and I can't remember a time when I didn't want to be a writer. It's just always something I've wanted to do. Yeah, always.
Yes, what happened to that manuscript?
I should return to it and see if there's anything in it there. Maybe I have watched the Batman movie again, and it does end where my friends who played Batman defeated the villain by doing a Spice Girls routine. So it's classic filmmaking, really.
Yes, proper girl power, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about like some of your, you mentioned there about writing when you were 6 years old and stuff, but when did you first become very serious as a writer? What some of the earliest things that you wrote?
So when I was at university, I joined Spotlight, and they had a kind of pot of money that enabled their members to be able to put plays on, which was such a gift. So I kind of started, I put my very first play on kind of in my second year of uni. And that was really, yeah. And so that was my kind of first time where I put my work up in front of people and started to really enjoy it. Theatre was definitely where I started out. I was purely a playwright for several years before I made the move into television.
Oh, nice. What was like some of your earliest experiences of like hearing your words being performed to an audience? What was that feeling like?
I was very, very lucky that my very first play that I put on was at the Etc. Theatre, kind of first professional production.
Yes.
And it was a really fun experience. I remember that like at the Etc. it's above a really loud pub, so sometimes if like the football was on, the actors would have to shout above the like if a goal was scored, you'd have to pause while the cheering happened and then carry on with the play. But it was such a great learning experience of like what especially a lot of my work is dark comedy, that what jokes will land, what doesn't work. I think one of the most important lessons I learned with having that first play on is how clever audiences are. That there was a joke in there that an actor came back on and got something. And I remember that the audience started laughing when he turned around. They didn't need to see the punchline. They were already there and laughing. And it's, I think the lesson I learned from those early experiences was to kind of write for the smartest person in the room and to assume your audience are with you. And I had just a brilliant cast who was so hardworking and have gone on to be really, do really well. And I worked with a director called Kevin Williams, who was just a gift to a writer of protecting your work and listening to you. And it was a really lovely first experience. And I think just gave me a love of theatre that I still have.
Yeah, for sure. So which university did you go to?
Bristol.
Bristol, yeah. Did you do creative writing or anything?
No, I did straight English, actually, but wherever possible, kind of did theatre writing as part of that. But yeah, all of my kind of drama experiences were kind of outside of my course of with Spotlight.
Nice. Yeah. How was Bristol? How were those 3 years?
Yeah, it was just brilliant. I'm not sure how much I worked. I mainly had a nice time and did lots of theatre and made short films. But it was a really great time, and very lucky that I have a friendship group that I still have now, which Brilliant. Is really nice.
Yeah, you do. You're one of the lucky ones. But, as I mentioned in the intro, you were a graduate of the Royal Court Theatre Young Writers Programme, which I know a lot of people want to try and get onto that. And, congrats for not only graduating from it, but getting on the course as well. So tell me about your time on that programme at the Royal Court.
Yeah, so I did a master's degree in screenwriting after the BA in English, which I didn't love, actually. I felt like I was sort of writing for what the tutors wanted rather than what I wanted to write. And I didn't love the experience. And I kind of came out not quite sure what my voice was, I think. Mm-hmm. And then I think it was just sort of 10 pages of a play at that point.
Yeah.
And luckily got a place on the Young Writers Programme, and Leo Butler was my kind of tutor on that programme, and he really did just change my life. That he was such a brilliant teacher. He's a brilliant playwright and a brilliant teacher, and he just helped me find my voice. My favourite thing about the Young Writers Programme at the Royal Court with him was that if he gave you a rule, he would always give you an example of somebody who successfully broke it. So for instance, that it's really useful if you have an active protagonist who's relentlessly pursuing their needs and has very clear wants and needs. Except Jerusalem is a superb, wildly successful play with a largely passive protagonist. So every time he would give you a rule, he would then give you a counter argument to it. So I kind of felt like he just gave you various tools for your toolkit, things that might spark something for you. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of that program, I had just been given the space to just really find my voice as a writer. And then, was chosen to then join the studio group, which was at that time, I think it might be slightly different now, but kind of all of their kind of development programs, they sort of picked a couple of people from each to then give sort of further support to. And that was just an incredible process as well. And I wrote my play Punts as part of that, which really changed my life because it was a finalist for the Nick Dark Award. And, I got my agent, I got my first television job. So it really did and it's the play that got me on for Screenwriting and the BBC Drama Writers Programme. So it really did just set in motion kind of what really was a springboard for my entire career.
Yeah, I love that. The idea that you sort of presented with all these rules and then someone goes, yeah, but someone else didn't do that. And look, what place did they write? Oh, Jerusalem. It's like, yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We had some incredible guest tutors as well. I remember Mike Bartlett came to talk to us, and they all kind of gave you extra kind of little tidbits that might be useful for your writing as well. So it was just, it was just such a gift for an emerging writer.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I remember speaking to another writer on here, Sarah Milton, who wrote about she did something
Yeah,
similar. She was at the Lyric Hammersmith for a while, and then she was lucky enough to learn from Duncan Macmillan, who wrote People,
yeah,
Places, and Things, and and Lungs, and all this kind of thing, and and it's really interesting to have like these writers, and I imagine they probably came in and shared some of their own experiences where they did well, and also experiences where they made mistakes as well,
yeah,
which I think is really nice to hear from people in the business to say that, yeah, but we've fucked up as well. We've still made
yeah,
mistakes. We still have bad drafts, we still
yeah.
make bad decisions, and that's really nice to hear. So I suppose really, I was going to save this question for later, but screw it, I'll bring it up now. I always thought, because I do a bit of writing myself, and one thing that I'm always curious about is when you start writing, do you just have an idea of like a situation and you just go for it and then find the meaning afterwards, or do you start with like the core meaning first and then go from there?
Yeah, so I am really, really big into research. So I usually will find a kind of world or a question or something that interests me,
Yeah.
something that keeps me awake at night and bothers me. And then I will kind of dive into that world and do some research, and the story and the characters will emerge from that research. So, for example, with Punts, I was really interested in sex work, and I interviewed a lot of sex workers, which was fascinating.
Mm.
And I spoke to somebody who had kind of created a niche of disabled clients and people who might otherwise not have sex if it wasn't with a sex worker. And when she talked about feeling like a carer, I suddenly realized that was my story. And so Punts is about middle class parents who pay for their son to lose his virginity with a sex worker. And that story came from truth, from reality. And so, yeah, for me, it's that I find a world that I'm fascinated by. And then I'm really interested in worlds that feel a bit secretive as well. It's like, I'm developing a show with Hatchet Mercurio that's about big pharma, and I feel like any world that affects us but feels a bit unknown and a bit shadowy, and I always think that's where the really juicy stories are, and that's where I like to dive into of industries and places where there might be secrets. I think that's where I like to try and find what those secrets are.
Yeah, I look forward to that one, that's for sure. Do you have a working title for that one, the Big Pharma one?
Yes, it's called Good Pharma.
Good Pharma.
Yes,
I look
yes.
forward to
It's
it.
just gone out to commissioners, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's exciting.
You go to working. So when you say commission, do you mean like you've got a working draft that's making the rounds at the moment?
Yeah. So I originally started developing that idea with Clerkenwell Films on the BBC Drama Writers Programme.
Mhm.
And then lockdown and COVID happened. And then we merged at the other side. And so Jed Mercurio, who obviously is the executive who runs Hatchet Mercurio, he used, I don't know if lots of people know this, but as well as being a very successful screenwriter, was previously a doctor, and himself ran pharmaceutical trials while he was working in hospitals. So he just instantly clicked with the idea, and was obviously a perfect person to help develop it because he's intimately familiar with the world. So yeah, so we've been developing that for a few months, and it's just gone out, which is exciting.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a really good part of actually, I think because you speak to other people, like you said, you spoke to sex workers and stuff, I'd imagine they probably gave very candid responses,
Yes.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But it's interesting how writers, you're allowed to like you have a subject matter, but you're not quite sure what it's all about. But there's something about it which is fascinating because when I was at drama school, my final project you had to do either a essay, one man show, or a short film, and I chose to do the one man show, and it was about pubs and stuff. And I just came across this. But bizarrely, I don't know how this worked, but I said, "Oh, my character's called Ben. Where did he go? Oh, University of Kent." I just plucked it out the Ethra, and so funny. I just thought I just googled University of Kent, and they've got a whole section on called Pub Lab where where they examine the effects of alcohol on the brain. And I got one of the lecturers, Eduardo A. Vasquez. I'm sorry, mispronouncing his name there. So, Eduardo, if you're listening, thank you. I got him on Zoom, and he just gave me like a full, detailed account of the science behind alcohol and what it does to the brain, and how there's like a higher percentage, and it's kind of common knowledge, but it's scientifically proven now, there's a higher percentage of the brain going into like rage mode what else under the effects of alcohol, because of what it does to the body chemistry and everything. And it's kind of like stuff we already know, but it was so fascinating to hear about the science behind it and what it does. Yeah. But I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to ask you this. What kind of responses did you get from the sex workers when you met them?
So it was very, very difficult initially to get sex workers to talk to me, because on a very literal level, you're worried about getting in trouble. And so that was quite difficult. But I went via charities that kind of support sex workers' rights and keeping sex workers safe. And once I managed to get to sit down with one sex worker, then she introduced me to several others. And obviously you have to, whenever you're interviewing anybody, I've interviewed, people who've worked really high up in the pharmaceutical industries, who've told me some very dodgy, fascinating things. And, I remember a sex worker talking to me about her experiences with an MP. And there's some very fascinating stories that come out, and you just need to earn their trust, but also to protect, it's almost like being a journalist, that you must not then break that trust. If they've told you stories, then you must, have enough degrees of separation and change it enough that they are going to be safe. But I remember that very first interview with a sex worker. I went into her office, and in the middle of the room, she was just sat on a chair, and in the middle of the room there was a saddle on a plinth, and that was the only other. And so I went to sit on the saddle, and she was like, no, and I turned around, and there was a chair behind me. It was just I'm so sorry. And she's like, no, it's okay. Good that you were open to go on the saddle. So okay. But she was, just a fascinating, incredible, very empowered woman to speak to. And I came out of that interview knowing that there was a play in this for sure.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. He had no idea what's been on that saddle. I don't want to know. I don't want to know anyway. But God. Yeah. It's funny because you remind me of. Have you seen the show Have I Got News for You on the BBC? Yeah. I remember there was a story about, you mentioned there, one of them had an experience with an MP, and actually went to the press about it. And she said he sent me photos of his private parts before I'd even met him. I thought this was very odd for a politician. and all of us are thinking, well, you haven't been here very long, have you, love? So, yeah, just crazy things happen over here. But it's interesting about how just as a writer, I imagine you guys just looking at the world, and just, I've had a few movement directors on here who I say a bit of a joke with them. I say they're walking through Regent's Park or something in London, and they see someone with a particular walk or a particular mannerism they do with their hands or something. But as a writer, do you are you constantly just listening to other people's conversations? You get on the tube and you just hear something, one sentence or a conversation in the corner, you're going, that's fascinating, I want to try and remember that. Is that part of your process?
100%. I'm so cheeky of often I will have my headphones on and I'll mute it, and then just kind of especially people arguing, and I love people watching. I think that's a big part of it. It was very annoying when you're spending time with me sometimes that I'm not paying attention to you, but actually just being there's someone very funny in that corner.
You're just
just hold on a minute and let me just I think the world is filled with brilliant stories and brilliant characters, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I don't know about you, but like, because I don't know if you have like a smartphone or something, right? Yeah, and you have like a notes app on your phone, or I don't know. Do you ever like? I've got a little folder on there now, which is called random notes, quotes from
Yeah.
people. Just that, even though I'm not sure how it would work, but I just put them down in my phone anyway. But yeah, I remember walking past these guys once. This group of guys. I was in Guildford at the time. I was walking up this hill, and this group of guys walking past me, and for some reason, one of them just said to the others, they'll bend you over and Vaseline you up for that, and then just carry on walking. And I thought, what are you talking about?
I love that when you catch the tail end of something and
Yeah,
you just think, I've caught a brief glimmer of an exciting world or story there.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a little book of ideas that I put stuff in, and some of them, become like billionaire for sale was a tiny little note that became something.
Mm.
And sometimes you look at it and it'll just be like cucumbers in space, and you just think, what was that that did not deserve a place in the notebook, but
Mm.
got in there somehow.
Yeah, because I mean, I get this image now of you on the tube, and there's a couple having an argument in the corner with your headphones on, obviously muted, and you're just writing
And then
it
he
all
said,
down. Just secretly, like, it's like, Sarah, what are you doing? It's like, shh.
yeah.
I missed. Shut up! I'm missing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. But I suppose really that's a good segue on to some of the work I want to talk to you about today. Of course, is Mrs. Wickham and Billionaire for Sale. So we'll start with Mrs. Wickham. It's a really, really lovely piece, Sarah. Congratulations. But they both are very, very, really, really good. And yeah, so I suppose behind it, Mrs. Wickham starring Jessie Buckley and Johnny Flynn, directed by the great Eleanor Rhode, has also been on here. Hello, Eleanor. And yeah, tell me about how that started.
There's a writer who I did my MA with, who I think is brilliant, called Annalisa. Uh, she said something recently, which I'm not. I think it's a quote that she shared of that our industry is so much luck, but the more you put your work out there, the more you increase the sphere within which serendipity can happen. And Mrs. Wickham, it's so funny of like the process of where it came to getting that commission. So I sent something to the BBC writers room when they have that open script window. It was 5 years ago, and it got into, where you kind of like, you make the final 5% and final 1%, and I
Mm,
made it into that. So I was still rejected, but I did get called in for a meeting with the then head of the writers room, which was Abigail Gonda,
mhm.
and had a meeting, and she was really supportive. And then I think she was literary manager at the Bush for a while, and then she moved to the States and became the head of commissioning at Audible, and just remembered me from
Wow.
all that time ago. And that's, I always think to say to writers, if you never know what script you send out will end up just coming back around.
Mhm.
And she, just set up a call and said, do you have any ideas? And I pitched her Mrs. Wickham, which she then took back to the Audible US team, and they loved it. And then that was it. It all happened really quickly then. And it was during lockdown as well. And so I felt very privileged to be working, when kind of it felt like our industry was shutting down. And also that actually during lockdown, audio became particularly popular. So I
Yeah.
was just really fortunate to have work on a brilliant project. And I begged for Eleanor Rhode to come onto that. I had been stalking her for many years. I saw her do a talk at Volks Festival when she was running her production company, and she talked about how she liked to work with writers. And I just thought, well, that sounds amazing. I would like a bit of that,
That
please.
sounds
And then,
good.
and kept an eye on her. And then as soon as I had that opportunity, and Audible asked for a list of directors I would like to work with. Her name was at the top of it. And then happily she said yes. So,
Yeah.
and that was the start of a really lovely collaborative relationship where she worked on both of my Audible originals.
Yeah.
It was just wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I just listening to Mrs. Wickham in particular. I mean, the one thing that jumped out at me, I mean, there's so many, but it's a fantastic story about female empowerment because Jessie Buckley is the narrator and who
Yeah.
goes through set in a very sort of typical British time where marriages were kind of, they were set, for money, essentially.
Yeah.
You marry this person, they have a great estate, therefore financial security, rest of the future. Do you love him? I don't care. Just marry him. And, it's that sort of time frame, that time period. And, and Johnny Buckley's character, which is, that's Johnny Flynn's character, sorry, was, we won't go too much into details because I want people to listen to it, but they get married and his scheme starts to unfold, and realizing that he's married her for the wrong reasons and stuff like that, simply to cover his own ass, basically.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is Jessie Buckley's just incredible, her character's journey through this, and then there's the war and everything that happens, and then what happens at the end happens. But it's a brilliant story about female empowerment, going from initial place of like submissiveness and like, this is what you've got to do, to actually at the end, she's almost like, well, across the journey, she becomes more and more of a free spirit. Was that part of it, your thinking behind it?
Yeah, it's even though it's set in Regency period, I wanted it was inspired by kind of modern stories of I listened to Monica Lewinsky's TED Talk where she talked about being shamed as a young woman and being shamed very publicly, and at the same time there was the kind of the Free Britney campaign about, and how Britney Spears was portrayed when she was a teenager. And I just was really interested in how women can pull themselves out from a position of being publicly shamed. And for it's probably going back to my English degree, but I remember when I read Pride and Prejudice of that I was an idiot teenager and who made mistakes, and thought, what if Lydia Wickham from Pride and Prejudice, if how she'd been treated for her mistakes had happened to me. And I felt very sympathetic for her, and I wanted to give that character a chance for retribution, and to put that kind of modern lens on, actually, is the woman to blame, or is it something more interesting? And to dive into that, I think.
Yeah, was Jane Austen one of your biggest inspirations, do you think?
I really do like Austen as a writer, and I think with Mrs. Wickham I wanted to be respectful of Austen, and to that Austen fans would listen to it and enjoy it. And there's kind of a lot of kind of Austenisms of like the good guy maybe not being as good as he seems, and just general love winning out. But then I also kind of wanted to poke fun at some of the things that are like how I like the kind of running joke that anyone who gets sent to the North in an Austen novel is kind of being punished and things like that, that I wanted to kind of make fun of a little bit. So, and that all of her characters who do follow their heart, they do tend to end up with a, rich, wealthy, very well-esteemed guy. And that in that way, it's quite conservative with a small c. So, yeah, I think it was being respectful of Austen whilst also making fun of it a little bit, very gently.
Very gently, very gently. The Austen estate will come after you with.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I haven't read Pride and Prejudice actually. I find Austen quite difficult to read because it's just so. I mean, her grasp of language is incredible. Don't get me wrong, but it's so dense. I mean, even that first line: "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife." Okay. Were you thinking about performing that line? yeah. It's like okay, where are we going with this? But no, I didn't realize she was Miss Lydia Wickham is actually a character in the original novel, and it's great that you picked her out in a way to sort of give her voice to a character who I'm guessing is mentioned much more in the original book. I would imagine so.
She's a big part of Pride and Prejudice, but definitely a minor character. But yeah,
it's interesting because you look at, you pick out these kind of, other people sort of look at these big novels, and you find just little like unexplained stories. And I think that's the example of another sort of example called Bridgerton. You've seen Bridgerton on Netflix?
Yeah.
And it's how the first book introduces you to everyone. You get an idea of like the main guy or girl is, and then it's expanded to all these other stories, because all the other characters get like the limelight and such. There's eight books or something like that.
Yeah, I think each of the books has a different kind of couple at the heart of it, doesn't it?
Yeah. But what was it about Lydia, that made you want to explore her story a bit more?
Yeah, I think it was being interested in women who've been shamed in literature and in reality, and wanting to explore that through kind of with modern eyes, I think.
Yeah, and they've got fantastic voices, both of them, Jessie and Johnny. I'm always curious about, like, because you're writing for audio, because you're not writing, because I imagine when you're writing for screen, one thing we were told at drama school was that keep the dialogue, don't be too dialogue heavy, because you're telling a visual story. You half the time in films, you're seeing the wide shots, you're seeing like the sunsets, the panoramic view over London or New York or whatever. Whereas audio, you have to create a world using only words, and of course you've got sounds and stuff to help you. But how do you write for audio specifically?
Yeah, there's obviously some restraints with audio in that you it has to make sense without visuals. But I actually, as I started to do it, Mrs. Wickham was my kind of first attempt. Was that actually there's a lot gained by audio, that there's an intimacy of being in someone's ears, which I kind of leaned into, of that you can be quite conspiratorial, and there's an intimacy there. Also, it's totally freeing in terms of you can one of the earlier scenes in it is like Johnny Flynn in the middle of he's like in an orgy in a brothel, and you can, audio wise, you can do that. You can just go and you can actually be quite brave, because you can do things like that. You can just go straight in, and so there is a freeing to it, of that you can say, I'm in the middle of a battlefield at Waterloo, and you can do that, and actually the audience will go there in their mind, and so that is a beautiful thing, which you can lean into. You also, there's the potential for comedy as well, I think, of with the audio stuff, of you can have characters pop up, and I think there's fun to be had with it as well.
Yeah, it's something like one sound effect of the door opening, so it'd be like two characters talking in a room. You just hear the sound effect of a door opening, and someone goes hello, and you're like, like you can see three people you can see it, but without seeing it, if that makes sense. But I think, you talked there about intimacy. There was there's quite like an erotically charged moment between the two of them, between Mrs. Wickham and between Lydia and the husband, and and it's it's interesting how this world becomes so slow and so intimate, and so you've got these two people trying to seduce each other just in your ears the whole time, and that's something that you can achieve with audio, because with film it's like you can see it and you can be attached to it, but with this, your own imagination is doing all the work, and it's incredible what worlds that you can see the ballroom, you can see your own interpretation of it and everything. That, I mean, as a writer, that must be fascinating to have so many different interpretations of what your words could mean, right?
Yeah, I think so. I also think with audio, well, with all things really, that casting is so important, that they have to be able to do so much with just their voice. And I think we were particularly lucky with casting Jessie Buckley and Johnny Flynn as kind of the romantic leads, because they'd worked together on Beast, and they walked into the studio already having a rapport with each other, and being friends. And so because your recording time is usually pretty tight when you're doing audio stuff, that especially if you've got high caliber actors, you want to take up their time as little as possible. So if you're able to hit the ground running, and throw them in as a married couple who are having an argument, or declaring their love, that if you're able to leap in, I think that can be really interesting. And then, funnily enough, with Billionaire for Sale, because the actors weren't available at the same time, they had to do their romantic scenes opposite nothing, which I don't think you can tell when you listen to it. So that was really interesting as a different kind of way of working. Of that, in Mrs. Wickham, Jessie and Johnny were stood opposite each other, talking to each other most of the time. And then in Billionaire for Sale, Cush Jumbo and Matthew Rhys, and again Johnny Flynn, were not opposite each other. We mixed their voices together afterwards, which I don't think, they're such brilliant actors that you genuinely felt like they were talking to each other.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're in the room together, so it worked. It worked, so which is good. I think I want to move on to Billionaire for Sale, because that one's completely different. It's about a heist. It's about people getting kidnapped. It's about billionaires specifically getting kidnapped because of their wealth and everything. And it taps into, again, it's that kind of typical sort of message, which is money isn't everything. And there's so much more to life than, so what if you can buy, and of course that was Cush Jumbo was also in that one as well. Johnny's in that as well. And two actors in it who sounded scarily like Matt Damon and Jude Law, but they actually weren't Matt Damon and Jude Law. They're actually somebody else. I was thinking, wow, this cast is incredible. But then, but I know one day. But actually, very quickly, you're working on both of those to be adapted, specifically Mrs. Wickham for a film and Billionaire for Sale for TV. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm not able to talk about it too much, but for Mrs. Wickham, it was optioned to be a feature. Just after it won the international Audie, it was picked up to be adapted into a feature, which I am in the process of writing. So that's been an interesting process of doing the opposite, of turning the audio now into visuals, so that will be, hopefully I'll have finished writing that very soon. And then Billionaire for Sale, funnily enough, so Cush Jumbo came in on the first day of the record and said, "You realise this would make a great TV show?" And I said, "Well, I think it could, yeah." And she said, "I also work as an exec producer, and I'm gonna give you a ring about this." And I thought that this was just one of the nice things that actors said sometimes, but she did. She followed up on it, and then so we are working on adapting it together, which is a really exciting process. And looking for a production company to partner with on that moment. Lots of exciting meetings.
Good. Netflix, if you're listening, we got something. That'd be the dream, right? Wouldn't it? I think it kind of has action set pieces built into it, and a lovely will they won't they romance through it, which I think it's one of the big things that draws me to television programs. I think it could be an incredible TV show. So fingers crossed it's going to happen. It definitely does, because of course another difference is Mrs. Wickham is like 2 hours continuous.
Yes.
This one was split up into 18 chapters.
Yeah.
And so it's like various different points. You've got the beginning where these two people meet, Cush Jumbo and Matt Damon's voice sounds scarily like him. But you met these two then, and then a heist happens, and then the billionaires at this party get kidnapped, and then the rest of it is basically them trying to figure a way out of this predicament. And if you want to know what happens next, guys, go and have a listen. But it's a really interesting commentary on money, on status and power, and it's basically asking, having money is important because we've got to live, we've got to eat, we've got to survive. But is having vast sums of it, does that make you a better person, or does that make you just a guy with a lot of money and you're just a bit of a dick about it, But it's asking them these questions. What made you want to target this thing specifically?
Yeah, I think it's another thing that came up during the Royal Court Studio group, was Simon Stevens spoke to us and said, like, writing about what keeps you awake at night. And for me, at the moment, it's that a lot of problems seem to come from billionaires, and and in the midst of a cost of living crisis, that billionaires are getting richer. And that bothers me. And then I, again, saying earlier about like diving into research, finding out some really scary statistics about just how much money that there's. I think it's 27 billionaires have as much money as 50% of the world's population. And I thought, this is something I want to write about. But I like to write about big issues, but to put them into kind of entertaining escapist stories, because I think life is a bit hard at the moment and a bit depressing. And so personally, as a viewer, I like stuff that feels just really entertaining. And so I was looking for a way of telling the story that was just really fun and accessible. And as part of my research, I came across just how many billionaires are kidnapped and how shockingly common it is. And as part of that, the insurance of billionaires is such big business as well. And that when a billionaire is kidnapped, that it's the insurance company that will try and get them safely home and pay the ransom or negotiate the deal. And I just thought that's my story. That's absolutely fascinating. And it is, I mean, it's millions and millions of ransom paid per year. And of course, it never makes the news because a billionaire or a millionaire doesn't want it to make it to the press that they've had a loved one or they have been kidnapped, because someone else might have a go. So it doesn't ever make it into the news, but it's incredibly common. And I just knew that was a fascinating story. And I knew that I wanted the start of the story to be that our heroine, Tess, who's played by Kush, had decided to leave her billionaire husband because she's unhappy, just as he's kidnapped. And then the inherent comedy in when you've decided you want to leave your partner, that then you're spending the next few months trying to get them home again because they've been kidnapped. I just thought it was very funny and was a really good starting point for the show. So
so that voicemail just before it all goes down the pan. You're thinking, oh my God, great timing. But just to have that, and then what happens next. But it's interesting because then there's a scene in, I can't remember which chapter, but they've been kidnapped and they're all in this room, and I think one of the characters, one of the billionaires, says to the other, like, you're worth nothing down here. And suddenly, when all of it's been stripped away and it's just you, the person, suddenly money becomes meaningless in ways, and it's just you. You are there in your humanness, and with not a penny to your name. And then you start to think, well, what's it all about? What's it all about, having all this money? Was that another thing you thought about?
Yeah. Also, I think of looking at a way of I never like to give audiences answers. I always like to explain. I never look at anything black and white at all. I always like to present grey areas and let the audience argue about, does a billionaire intrinsically always have power, even if they are locked in a basement, or do they not? Are they rendered powerless at that moment? And also looking at the fun angle of it, for an entertaining story, of that I knew that there would be inherent comedy in, if you take a kind of Elon Musk type billionaire and put them in a basement where they have to go to the toilet in a bucket, that would be quite funny. I think that there was, although talking about audio as a challenge, your earlier question, there was a point where I realized that I had written a lot of scenes where it was 4 men locked in a room, And that's why they've become like Norwegian, Scottish, English, and American, so you could tell who was talking. I didn't really think that through. I got very attached to the full characters, and then realized that with audio,
Yeah.
I created problems for myself there. So I had to make sure they have very distinct voices.
Yeah.
Not only their accents, but the way that they spoke and their style and their character was wildly different, so that we knew who we were listening to in that basement, which created a barrier for myself that I needed to overcome.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's another good point about audio as well, is to make sure that every character is unique or sounds unique. Because if you have two people sounding like you and I, or something like two girls sounding like yourself, or two guys sounding like me, you're thinking, wait, hang on a second, who's who again? Who again? Yeah. So that's a really good point to make. Yeah, and there's more. You've got to have that distinction and everything. But yeah, I imagine that you get into, I'm sure every writer's had this experience, like you get to a point you're so invested, and then suddenly they'll say one thing, and they go, you do realize this is audio, or like this character's character arc is very similar to this one, and you go, oh shit. And then you go back and change everything again. But it's that investment and everything, yeah. But it's like, I think it's great that writers have an investment in their characters, because, without it, there wouldn't be a play, there wouldn't be an audio drama, there wouldn't be a film and everything. So, like, how important is it to have a relationship with your own characters, both the good and even the bad?
Yes, I absolutely love writing bad guys, actually. I think that kind of, like some of my favorite characters are kind of, like everyone in Succession, it like Hannibal Lecter. Like, I really like great bad guys. I love them. And I think there's some great writers who've created some, like Aaron Sorkin is brilliant at creating like articulate bad guys. I like writing characters who articulate the things we're a bit scared of, but they do it with charm and charisma and humor. That's one of my favorite things to write. So I like characters who say the things that I very rarely agree with what they're saying, but I like letting them have that space. That's really fun. And I think I feel like I write a lot of my protagonists are often women, and they're often older women. I think there's a real kind of dearth of great parts for older women, and so I write that a lot. And I feel quite fortunate that even just in my kind of, I've only been a screenwriter for about 5 years now, that even just in that time, that early on, I used to always get the note in meetings and with development people of like my female characters being unlikable or too complicated. And then I think there's just been this kind of change that writers like Michaela Cole and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Kat Sadler, like some brilliant writers, have just made it that very complicated women are quite welcome now, which has been, as that being something that I love to write. There's just been a change where that I think the commissioners and development teams are much more open to really complicated, knotty female characters, which is, because that's my favorite thing to write, that's just been really joyful to see that openness develop over the last few years. There's still a ways to go, I think.
Oh, for sure.
But it's definitely getting better. And I found kind of pitching my stories with complicated women at the heart, a lot more openness to that now, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like you said earlier, it's not black and white. Life is grey and it's colour sometimes. I think particularly over the last few years, it's not this. It's not just this is this and that is that. There's a whole other way that we can look at life in a way, because it's just unpredictable all the time. And particularly in the stories that you've created, like at the end of Mrs. Wickham, I was thinking I was not expecting that at all. And then at the end of the journey across Billionaire for Sale, made you question about all these things about money and power. And you made you think, another thing is like, what does it do to a person? What does it do having all that power and having all that money? You went, yeah, I imagine it's really lovely. You can afford anything.
Yes.
But what does it do? But what else does it do other than that? What else does it do? Yeah.
I wanted I like it if the character makes you ask a question of what would I do in that situation. And I think as a lot of people, I think, have a kind of disdain for billionaires. But if you were faced with having a relationship with one and never having to worry about money and to live the life that a billionaire could provide for you, would you say no, or would you try it? And then how might that actually unfold? What that life might actually be like? I always kind of like those things that make you think, what if I was in that situation, what would I do?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, you ask a lot of really great questions in these two. You really do. But it's interesting but obviously we can't really discuss these too much more because obviously we'll touch on some spoilers here. But I implore you guys to go and listen to Mrs. Wickham and Billionaire for Sale, both on Audible right now, and keep your eyes peeled in the future for future developments on both of them. So I have some questions about particularly the commissioning process. Like, so you've written a play and then you present it to like Bloomsbury Press, Oberon, or Samuel French. Like, what's that process of commission and publishing? What's it like?
Yeah, so funnily enough, that I didn't actually really need to do any work at all on those. That if you I think usually if you're lucky enough to have your play on, so my first kind of big professional production was at the Finborough, and then Oberon approached me to then publish the play text as part of that.
Okay.
And then when Punts was on again, Bloomsbury kind of approached me too. And then I think Oberon Press kind of had joined them at that point. I'm not quite sure. So in those situations, usually a publisher will kind of come to you. And if you're lucky to have a bit of choice, which I did. And I remember Bloomsbury invited me in for a meeting, and I remember that they had a wine fridge in their cafe, and I thought, well, these guys seem brilliant. So I just thought it was you could their writers could help themselves, is what I mean, not just, I was amazed by the fact that they had wine.
They have wine, they must be good.
Yeah, they have wine, they must be brilliant. But no, I genuinely sort of met with the Bloomsbury team, and they just were really brilliant, and and published the play text. And there's something, I think it just feels like a really important moment as a writer. It's just this magical feeling when you have your play in your hand for the first time. It feels like a really big moment, and I think all writers do this, where you kind of then go to the NT bookshop and go and find your play on the shelf and get your picture taken with it, and it does feel like a rite of passage that's so important and lovely. You don't need to buy any Christmas presents that year, because everyone just gets a copy of your, here you go, here's my play. It's just, I remember like when Punts was on, of like people asking me to sign their copy of the playtext, where it was just like, it just felt really nice that people had enjoyed it so much. And it's a really lovely moment when you get your play published. It feels really good.
Yeah. Do they give you like a prototype copy beforehand, like with the design and everything? You read through it to make sure the punctuation's correct, all the right words are there, and then they go, "Are you ready for mass production?" And you go, "Yes," and then it goes.
Yeah, you get a digital copy to proofread, and it's terrifying if you're just like, don't miss anything. And then you get more sensible people than you to read it and proofread it. For me, it was usually a digital copy that you would proof, but it's typeset, so it looks like it will look. And then usually the first time you get it is they'll deliver a big box to the theatre, and then you get to open it, and there it is. There's all of the copies of the play. It's a really nice feeling.
Yeah, I'll bet you look down and you think, I wrote that.
Yeah, I wrote that.
Yeah,
it's really nice.
Yes, from my Microsoft Word document or notes on a page, and here it is now.
Like that moment I almost climbed on a sex worker's saddle, and now here I am holding the Bloomsbury have published the play that has come from that mad moment.
Yeah. Spraying Dettol on my clothes.
I'm sure it did smell of Dettol. I'm sure she cleaned it regularly.
God, I sound horrible there. I do apologize if you're listening. But cool. Just got a few more things left for you, Sarah. So I want to talk to you about, I mentioned Sunny March in the intro, which is the production company. So, of course, led by the fantastic Benedict Cumberbatch. So when you're going to a production company, what are those meetings like? So how do you work with them?
Yeah, Philip Shelley, who runs the For Screenwriting program, once gave me some advice that I think is just brilliant, and I've always kept with me, which is that when you go to meet with production companies, to treat it as a date rather than a job interview, which is such good advice, because that actually it really is it's a two-way relationship, that if you are lucky enough that they buy your show, and then if you're even more lucky that you get a green light, you might be working with them for 4, 7, 10 years.
Wow.
And so you really do have to like each other. And so I think it's really getting a sense of whether you get along. And if it's sort of what's called a general, where you are just, generally chatting about ideas, that it's getting a sense of their taste, and if you're the kind of writer that they are looking for, and vice versa, that they make the kind of stuff that you really enjoy. And then I think if you're pitching them a specific idea, or it's a meeting that, you've maybe sent them a script that they've read and liked and they're interested in, or you've pitched them, I usually in the first instance would just write maybe a 1-pager on an idea and send it over to see if they're interested. And if you have a meeting about a specific idea, I think it's to talk about it and get a sense of if they really do understand the idea and their vision of what the show would be, or the film, to get a sense of if they see it the same way you do, and if they understand it the same. Because you'd be surprised how often people are just a million miles away from your vision of it. And I think when you're first starting out, it's really difficult to do, but you should walk away from those meetings, and that should be the end of it, really. It's so difficult when you're first starting out, I think, to say no to things, but actually you should.
Big time.
Yeah. And then I think as you get a bit more established, so I've recently been sort of pitching an idea that came from, I used to do kind of playwriting sessions and playwriting talks in high security men's prisons, and an idea came from that. And I was fortunate enough that quite a few production companies were interested in that particular idea. And then you just go and I remember that one production company that I went in there for an hour meeting, and like 2.5 hours later, we were still talking, and they were clearly so passionate about it and so understood the idea that it just was a no-brainer that they were the right company to place the idea with. But yeah, I think Philip Shelley advice to treat it as a date is so useful, of that actually it's a two-way, that you should really just be yourself and get a sense of who they are as a development team, and if you are going to be able to create great work together, I think.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good. I'd never heard that before. Treat it as a date rather than a job meeting, because as you say, you'll be working with these people for like you say, nearly up to 10 years.
Yeah,
and also it's really important. We said there about saying no, because I've done a few episodes where saying no it's healthy. It's healthy to say no, because I imagine so many people probably gone, like you said, when people are just starting out and they go there with this vision and they're really, really proud of it. It's thought through, and then they go, but what about this? What about this? What about this? And then suddenly it's not their vision anymore. It's been distorted and it's taken away, and they go, well, yeah, I suppose they must know more about it than I do. It's like, no. This is your idea. You know exactly what you're doing. And if you have to walk away, you have to walk away, Yeah,
it is. It's very easy to say, though, especially when you're first starting out and you want to be able to pay your bills and start to get credits and build your CV, that it is so difficult to say no. And there might be moments where you're not in a position that you absolutely need that treatment commission, or so it's easily said. But if as soon as you are able to follow your heart as much as you can. I also heard I'm not sure who said this to me, but a great tip as well of that, you know, what you were saying about your vision drifting in the development hell process, that someone said to me to write down, when you very first start with an idea, to write down what the central idea is and why you wanted to write it, even if it's just a couple of sentences. So when that drift happens, if it happens, that you've got on that little bit of paper, like, you know, this is what I'm interested in this idea, and that you can kind of refer back to that, so you don't lose your way too much, because you'd be surprised over a period of years how much you can forget why you started out doing this, and like intrinsically the story that you wanted to tell, and where your desire to write this story came from. And so I think it can be really useful to have just a little note of where it first came from, I think, so you don't lose focus too much.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just stay confident in your idea more than anything, because you know what you're writing about, and you believe in the message behind it as well, and how, you know, if people sneer at it and say, well, then just say thank you, but then fine. You know, we've all had bad dates in our time, haven't we? So, you know, sometimes you have to just walk away and be like, okay, well, we're never doing that again. But you know, so saying no is a good thing. It's a good thing.
Oh gosh, and as well, like the I've actually had it on the same day recently, where a company has just enthusiastically passed on an idea and given 5 reasons why it's not for them.
Wow.
And then on the same day that 2 companies both are desperate for it. It really is just so much of personal taste, isn't it? Of not taking it too personally if people pass on a thing that they're just not the right person for it.
I mean,
and one person's easy pass is someone else's, I'm going to fight to option this because I love it. And literally I've had that happen on the same day with the same idea.
Brilliant.
You just got to, I think, if you find the right home for an idea, then that's when it really starts to sing, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's that famous story, J.K. Rowling was turned down by 12 or 13 publishers thinking it wasn't for them, and then Bloomsbury took a shot.
I think wasn't The Office rejected? Was it something like 10 or 18 times? And you know, it's made Ricky Gervais a lot of money, hasn't it? So
yeah, he's done all right.
I think a lot of projects, they've just taken a long time to find the right home and there is a lot of luck involved of your idea landing on the right desk in front of the right person's eyes at the right moment, I think.
It's all in the right timing. Everything, just trust it and keep going. And you know, I'm a bit of a spiritual guy. The universe will give you it when it's the right time and stuff. You know, I'm a big believer in that. So guardian angels looking out for us all, aren't they? But cool. So I just got a few more questions there for you, Sarah. First of all, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know I've caught you at a rather busy time, so you know, developing scripts and everything. So for you to have your time today, it's been fantastic. So you said earlier at the beginning that the Royal Court Theatre Writers Group, the Studio Writers Group, like they helped you to sort of find your voice in a way now, and with your writing. So do you feel like now, as we speak, have you found that voice?
I think it's so difficult to describe how I think it's that I remember I was in a meeting and someone said I was thinking about what the Sarah Page way of writing this would be, and I realized that I probably nailed my voice, that somebody outside of me knew what a Sarah Page version of that idea would be. Like if I say to you, you know, what would a Tarantino version of that story be? You in your mind instantly know what that voice is, or a Greta Gerwig version of that idea, or a Phoebe Waller. Like, I think once you've got that clarity of what your voice is and how you tell stories, that It's just so useful. And then once you've got your own voice, then you will find your tribe of the people that connect with that, the directors and creatives and things that will come to you. I think a mistake I made for several years when I first started out was that I kind of used to do like outside in writing. So I would look at I would kind of think, what does Channel 4 want? What's the show that Netflix are looking for at the moment? Oh, that director is looking for this kind of a script. And I would kind of look at what people wanted and write to fit to them. And then I think at some point, and it sort of, then I started to do considerably better as a writer, was working from the inside out of what were the stories I wanted to tell. And actually, my most successful things have probably seemed quite uncommissionable, but it's because they're quite bold and different and have a strong voice that actually they did find homes, because it wasn't like anything else. So, yeah, I think that was a mistake that I did as an emerging writer of trying to fit into what other people wanted. And then as soon as I started to write from the inside out, what was the stories I wanted to tell, what did I care about, that then everything changed, because people would read that script and it felt authentic. I think it's finding your voice is really key, and I think the only way you can do it is to write and to get your work out there. I think it's a great thing about writing for the stage as well, of literally seeing an audience respond to your voice, and what chimes with audience. Like my very first play, the one at the Etc., was called Pilgrims, and I remember that like there was a point where it would almost always make the audience cry, and I remember just feeling like it was the most wonderful feeling. I was like, I've made this room of people cry. This is what I wanted. But it was it was like being on really good drugs. Like it was just the feeling of making a room full of people laugh and cry. I absolutely loved it. And I think I knew at that point I'd found my voice, because it was connecting with people.
I mean, what a moment. Huh?
It's a good. Making a room full of people laugh or cry is just the most incredible feeling.
Yeah, and you're quietly sitting in the back, seeing everyone crying. I've got him. So I suppose, what stories do you feel like you haven't told yet? What stories do you feel have gone untold in Sarah Page's world?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm diving into some more kind of research of things. I'm not quite sure. I think it's all for me. I love taking big issues and putting them in small situations. So I think it's maybe because I've got a toddler, I feel like at some point there's going to be a Sarah Page children's show come out. Oh yeah, that too. Yeah. I think after you've watched enough episodes of Bluey, you start to think, I'm going to write my own children's show, but I don't know, that it would be quite dark, I think. I don't know. Watch this space, I think. Sorry, I've just got one more question before we get into the final two. You said earlier something about dark comedy, that you liked writing dark comedy. But what is it about dark comedy that you love so much? I really like to put quite difficult, complicated, horrible truths about ourselves wrapped up in humor. I think it's a really good way to sneak in. I love the laugh where people feel a bit naughty for laughing. That's one of my favorite laughs, where there's like, you'll sometimes get an awe as they laugh. That's my favorite. I just find that really enjoyable.
Yeah,
it is fun.
it's fun. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Phoebe Waller-Bridge actually. Did you see? Have you
Yeah.
seen Fleabag, the original stage
Oh,
version?
yes, yeah, I have.
Yeah, there's a fantastic line in there which you hear it and you're repulsed and you're laughing at the same time. It's very very early on. She's talking about things and she looks to the left and at like her bedroom wall or something, and she goes, "I stare at a handprint on the wall when I had a threesome on my period." And you're
It's
going,
just, I really love stuff that goes to those places. Yeah, yeah. I just, it's a fun kind of a laugh, and I think sometimes people surprise themselves about what they find funny as well. I
yeah,
think,
yeah. It's like those Instagram videos where the tagline is "If you laugh, you go to hell,"
yeah,
and the whole time
yeah.
you're going, "Oh, it's funny, it's funny." But that line in particular, a threesome on my period, and then she just turns to the audience. You can hear the audience just going,
Oh,
and like, "Oh God!" And
yeah,
people going, "I shouldn't be laughing," but that's actually really funny. But, yeah, it's like laughter is like a healing thing in a way. And I've spoken about Ricky Gervais on this show quite a bit, but you know, he's healing people, and I can talk about his upbringing with his brother and how he would make jokes at really inappropriate times. But
yeah.
it's a healing process, isn't it? Has that ever crossed your mind that you're sort of making people laugh at stuff that they shouldn't be scared of in a way?
I yeah, I think that humor can get you through some really, really tough times. I think British people are especially good at it as well.
Mm.
Uh, I'm I'm very lucky that I am well now, touch wood. But I wasn't very well for a while, and I remember being in like the waiting room of an oncology department,
Oh, shit.
and making jokes, and like just that it passed the time and stopped me being frightened because we were joking. And I think it just can be an absolute power for getting you through difficult times. Yeah, and I mean, and now being like a new-ish mum, like the sleepless nights and all of those things, that just a sense of humor will power you through. I think it just would be the most incredible thing. And I do think it's that British people are so good at having
Yeah.
a sense of humor in difficult times. It's a kind of superpower that we have. And yeah, you can totally bring that into your scripts as well, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But God, I'm sorry you had that experience. How you're feeling better now? You feel
Oh,
like
yes, I'm all good. Thank you.
good, good. It's what we like to hear. No, it's yeah. I seriously, I could have you here for another hour talking about dark comedy. It's brilliant. We'll have to do another one at some point, Sarah, talking more
Yeah.
about it. But no, it's yeah. I think Ricky Gervais uses this term like you're bulletproof. You can laugh in the face of adversity. You're
Yes.
bulletproof, and that's a brilliant analogy. And I have to tell this one. I've told a few more Ricky Gervais things on here, but he does this thing at the end of Humanity on Netflix. Have you seen it?
Hmm.
Yeah, where he's going for a day trip to the beach and he gets stopped by a copper, and he sort of gets his like mirror on a stick, checking under the car, and as he does that, the copper's helmet falls off, and out of the helmet falls a pack of 20 cigarettes, and he goes, "Oh, but you always wondered what we kept under our helmets," and he goes, "Oh, I knew it wasn't fucking brains." And you're thinking, you just said that to a copper. And you're just like, oh my God, that's funny. Yeah, he's a good guy, Rick. Yeah, I will interview him one day. I will. Yeah, he's coming on soon. We talk all about comedy and stuff. We could do a dual episode if you want. That'd be great. But it's brilliant. Sarah, this has been so much fun. I've just got two more questions left for you. Then
Yes.
just finish your
Hit
questions.
me. Go for it.
Every guest. So, first one is, what would you say was a bit of advice you wish you heard at the beginning of your career?
Oh gosh. Yeah, I think it would probably be that idea of writing from the inside out, of not I think it's finding the balance between having an understanding of the industry
Mhm.
and watching lots of stuff, reading lots of stuff, building relationships and networking. That's all really important. But when you sit down to write, is to kind of forget about that, and to write from your gut and from your heart and your voice and the stories that you want to tell. Because I think if you're trying to write something that will sell, it's perversely less likely to sell than if you write something that comes from a place of just more passion and not worrying too much. Because if you've written something that's bold and unique and new and has something to say, that it will find its I'm like Baby Reindeer. I mean, what a huge hit. Imagine the like one line pitch of what that show's about. It seems totally uncommissionable, doesn't it? But just a huge hit because it came from such a genuine place and was told with such vulnerability. And so, I would say don't worry about selling things, because if you do, it'll have the reverse effect of what you want. And writing from the heart is always a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point. I was thinking about Baby Reindeer and something you were talking about earlier, actually, and just that show in particular is just unbelievable. I mean, huge shout out to Richard Gadd and the whole creative team behind that. It was just phenomenal. And sorry, I've just got one very, very quick question before the last one. Did you ever like take breaks in between? Because I feel like when you're writing a script and then suddenly like your brain just goes, okay, like writer's block and stuff like that. Like, do you ever take breaks from it and go, right, I'll come back to that later, because if I just continue writing that, I'm just going to write gibberish or something? Is that ever something that happened to you?
I'm often juggling multiple projects, and so if I'm feeling a bit weary of a project, I can usually switch across to another. But I have to say that if you've got shows that you love in development and ideas that you love, that I don't usually sort of have that. I kind of I usually kind of block out sections of my kind of diary for each idea, and so I would sort of move on to the next thing, I think, and to keep I think if you're weary of an idea, there's maybe something intrinsically wrong with it, and to go back to the beginning again and have a little look of why, I think. Although there might be exceptions of that, you might be like writing an episode of someone else's show and or something like that, and you would just have to power through. I think deadlines is a brilliant motivator. And if you you'll only get paid on delivery of drafts, so that usually kills writer's block for me, of the knowledge that if I complete it I get paid. That's very motivating.
That's a good one. Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant, man. That's fantastic. Oh God, so many more questions popped into my head, but we'll have to save them for another time. But so final question for today for every guest is, what's been an experience or experiences you've had in your career up to now that you'll never ever forget?
Oh gosh, am I allowed to? Can I have to?
Yeah, experience or experiences. So 10 if you want.
So for me, I think with a lot of people, that I grew up in Leicester, and my local theatre doesn't actually exist anymore, because it was called the Haymarket, and it was a superb theatre where a lot of the stuff they programmed used to transfer to London, and we were really lucky to have just the most incredible actors and things. And I saw a version of Othello when I was very little, and it just blew my socks off and was so powerful. And I think it was the first time of that immersive experience of knowing how powerful theatre could be. And then I feel like this is probably it's a terrible cliche, and so many people will probably talk about Jerusalem as being a big moment for them, but I remember that I got a weekday matinee ticket to go and see it, the kind of original Mark Rylance.
Wow.
And I was in the middle of a girls' school, and I was surrounded by teenagers, and I thought, oh gosh, this is just, I should have come on a different day.
Yeah.
And the second it started, like the giggling continued for a while, and then it hooked them. They were, and the entire, I mean, it was like 400 teenage girls were just silent. It just got them. And I remember at the end of it that the girl next to me was sobbing so much. I had to put my arm around her. And she was like, that was amazing. And it was so funny of just the journey of, oh God, what have I got myself into versus just that it just won them, it instantly won them round. And they were,
wow.
And I think it was probably a lot of their most powerful moments in theatre. But it instantly hooked us all in. And the second, Mark Rylance sort of did a handstand, and I think he had 4 raw eggs and a pint of milk, and that was it. The whole audience was in with him, and yeah, you could hear a pin drop in that theatre, and it was
wow.
It just made me realize the power of excellent writing to just unify people.
Yeah.
And also of an incredible creative team coming together. I think of all of the components of that production were excellent. And so that was a moment that I always remember of the power of theatre to silence teenagers.
No, it shows you're doing a good job. Yeah, the writing is everything, isn't it? When you got good writing, then you know you're in a good show, and you can trust it, and everything in between. But
there's nowhere to hide in theatre, is there? I think in television and film, you can hide behind some of brilliant visual effects or set or beautiful shot, but in theatre, there's nowhere to hide. If the writing's not good, you're very exposed.
Oh yes, yeah. You get a few walkouts. I can't handle this anymore. No. Oh, brilliant, Sarah. This has been absolutely great. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great to talk about everything in between. Still got so many more things left for you, so I'd love to talk to you again at some point and talk about the adapted feature film of Mrs. Wickham and the successful Netflix Billionaire for Sale, and whichever a major platform it goes on. I look forward to it, or Amazon Prime or whatever. No, but do keep me in the loop with that. I'd love to I'd love to hear more about it and see it when it comes out and everything. But this has been absolutely great. If you just hang on, I'll finish the recording. We'll have a tiny debrief afterwards, then I'll let you shoot off to go get your toddler from school. And this has been great, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been the Uncensored Critic Podcast, and I'll be back very, very soon. And Sarah Page, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.